Hi all, here we are today, and I'd like to start off by saying I've spoken to quite a few people this week, and one of the things that I've learned is the fact that most of the people that I talk to have no idea what they're talking about, but they do have questions. So if I had not been talking with these people, one, their questions would not have been answered. And number two, they would continue to be in a frame of mind where they did not know what they were talking about. Now, let's start off by agreeing that the AccuWeight program itself works. So if the AccuWeight program works, there's no need to talk about the program unless there is something very specific about the dairy days, about the vegetable days, about the acupressure. Unless there is a specific question, it is what it is. So let's not talk about it. Let's talk about how we can achieve our goals and stay with our commitment. Now, I've done something today that I haven't done in the past. I've gone to a dictionary and I've written down things rather than be my spontaneous self. And so the first thing I'd like to read to you is, hi, Yvonne. Yvonne just popped up, so I thought I'd all say to you, and by the way, Yvonne is active on the telephone, will answer your questions, and all you need is to try to contact her. Now, here is a definition of commitment. Commitment is a cause that you choose that restricts your freedom of action. It means that it results that your goals to be reached are those of your choice. Now, you've agreed to restrict your freedom of behavior in order to achieve something. Now, the moment I talk with anyone about restriction, already I have resistance. Now, so the question is, why have you chosen this course? Why do you choose to lose weight? If you're not clear in your own head, then you're going to be doing things that make no sense at all. Number two, you've agreed to restrict your freedom. Now, I'd like you to tell me any time, any place, anywhere where human beings are happy, unless they've got some reason and motivation to do so, to restrict their freedom. What are you doing telling me what to do? I know what to do. Now, whether you do or not is not the issue. The issue is that once you make the commitment, you have to stick with the commitment, and you have to recognize that if your commitment is true, then you are restricting your freedom. So first, why am I doing this? Have a reason that makes sense to you and be clear about it. I am doing this. I want to lose weight because. and make the because something that you are clear about and agree to. What will I get from achieving that goal? Is that what you really want? And if that is the case, you've fortified your making the choice. And something else. What do I really want? Now, very few people are clear in their own minds about what making a commitment means. Now, the question is this. Have you ever thought about the fact that you need to actually state to yourself that you are important enough in your own life to do what you said you're doing? Now, one of the biggest problems that I see is that people are not clear in their own minds as to whether they see themselves as important beyond anything else to want to do what they're doing. So the program is over here in its structure, but the psychological aspects are the ones that are more important. Because in order to do the program, you have to behave in a manner that supports your commitment. And as we talk about that, maybe it can become clearer and help us be more successful. Now, once we are agreed to the commitment, we're ready to move on. Now, the first challenge is to recognize that you are agreeing to accept the feelings that are going to arise, the things that you say and do, and that is going to make you uncomfortable. Now, why? Reason is simple. You have behaved the way you have behaved, and because you've behaved the way you have behaved, you're now overweight. Very simple, cause and effect. And you're used to doing what you do, and now because you've made a commitment, you have to recognize that if you continue to behave the way you've behaved, then your commitment is false. So you can't possibly succeed unless you're ready in your own mind to recognize making a commitment is going to make you uncomfortable. How many times have you heard or maybe even said yourself, I always do it this way. I like to do it this way. I'm not sure I would like doing it that way. All of those statements, and there are countless more, say that you are comfortable with what it is that you do, and that once you make the commitment, even though it's something that makes you comfortable to do, You can't continue to do what you've been doing and at the same time be true to your commitment. So, what are we saying? We're saying that any choice to lose weight, any choice to lose weight commits you to changing your thoughts and your behavior. Thoughts and behavior. Now, example. You get sort of some satisfaction from behaving in the way in which you behave. And so you behave in the way in which you behave because it makes you feel good. Now you recognize that if you continue to behave the way you've behaved, even though you like it, you're not going to get what you say you really want. And many of us get caught up in that because we don't recognize that change, and I'm going to repeat myself many times, change is inevitable. You cannot possibly do the same thing the same way every time. Even if the alteration is minute, it doesn't happen the same way. But we, in our heads, say, no, I'm doing it the same way. And you do it the same way because it makes you comfortable. So, to begin with, if we're going to be successful, let's accept the fact that we will initially be uncomfortable. We're not going to feel good about what it is we're doing. But here's the truth. You've made many changes in your life. Things have happened. And you do make change. And change makes you uncomfortable. But you want to know something very interesting? For most things, if you're conscious about it, and it's important to you, and it makes sense, how long is it going to take you to accept the change? And the change will make you feel good because it moves you closer to getting what it is you say you really want. Now, what I'm telling you here is, and this is important, if we are going to be successful, we have to agree that we in our own selves are important enough to accept the discomfort of change, because the discomfort will get us closer to our goal, and we will get used to the change, and the change will no longer be uncomfortable. Now, following any new regimen is always uncomfortable. Living in a different house, living in a different town, changing your job, going to a new group, all kinds of changes make us uncomfortable. And let's not try to define that. Let's just accept the fact that if I'm going to be successful, I need to recognize that change is occurring in my life. I don't want that change to occur because it will make me uncomfortable, but I recognize that I care enough about myself. I care enough about myself to accept that change is inevitable, change is uncomfortable, and that change is not forever in the discomfort zone, because I will accommodate to it if I do it consciously. And so we're not talking about program. You've accepted the fact that AccuWeight loss works. So if AccuWeight loss works, let's not talk about it. Let's accept the fact that we've made a decision. We've made it on a rational, reasonable basis. And now we have to address it. Now, one of the issues, I've talked about it before. This guy was over 360 pounds. He called me on the telephone and he said, Dr. Schwartz, I have a question. When I was 360 pounds, I was invisible. Now, think about that, Doc. I was 360 pounds and invisible. I've lost 160 pounds. And now I'm visible. People talk to me. I'm included in circumstances and situations that I wasn't before. How is it possible to lose 160 pounds and become visible? The answer is simple. In order to go from 360 to 200 pounds, he took control of his life as best as he could. He decided to alter his behaviors, and by altering his behaviors, he lost the weight, but something else happened too. People saw that he was doing something, and they recognized that he was doing something that maybe they thought about, but they weren't doing it. And in the process, his taking control of his own life in the areas that he could got the attention of other people. Remember what I said. People are uncomfortable with change. He was making changes. They happened to be visible. He was making changes. Many of them were thinking about it or asking questions, but they suddenly recognized that he was being proactive in his own life, making himself important to himself, and it attracted other people because all of us like to feel what we think he felt in the process of losing the weight. Now, let's talk now about commitment. And I accept that I want to do it one for myself. And I accept the fact that it's going to lead to challenges. Hear that? Once you make the commitment, you've agreed to change, and we have to accept the fact that change is going to make us uncomfortable. Are you important enough to yourself that you're willing to make the changes for you? Now, be very careful here, because this has nothing to do with anyone else. Now, I'd like to point out something else that I've talked about before. I have an opinion. You have an opinion. Since you have an opinion and my opinion is different than yours, you think that I'm wrong. And because your opinion is different from mine, I think that you are wrong. We've already got a problem. No matter what you say to me, if I'm not conscious of what it is you and I are talking about right now, you're trying to convince me that I'm wrong. I'm trying to convince you that you're wrong. That's not why we're here today. The first thing we need to understand is most people have no idea of what they're talking about, number one. And number two, my opinion bothers them. Now, who and how and why it bothers them at this moment, we'll get to it, is irrelevant. I have to stop and recognize that unless you understand, know, have information, it's not going to make any difference. Now, any change that my behavior causes you or your behavior causes me is going to make me uncomfortable. So already, now that I have an opinion that's not the same as yours, because we've put a spotlight on it, we're uncomfortable. Now, we both can't be wrong because you're on one side and I'm on the other side. But maybe we also can't be right. Maybe part of your thinking is valid, and maybe part of my thinking is invalid, and vice versa. But we're never, ever going to find out the truth, because there are underlying issues. I'll give you a simple example. I'm 60 years old, and this back a few years ago, and I wanted to go and visit my mom. I got on the phone, "Hi, Mom, how you doing? Blah, 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 let's get together." We made a time, and I hung up the phone. About an hour later, as I was getting to leave my house, the telephone rang. "Remember to take an umbrella," she said, "it may rain." I hung up the phone, and I said, "I'm 60 years old. My mother is calling me on the phone to tell me to take an umbrella." And I just shook my head, and then I realized something. My mother was no longer the mother that she was. I'm independent. I do what it is that I want. Her role in my life had changed. And she was not comfortable with that because she liked being my mother. So she called me on the telephone and did what a mother does. Take your umbrella. I took my umbrella. I knew I didn't need it. I took my umbrella because it was no big deal. And I recognized that if I didn't take the umbrella, and since it was no big deal to me to take it, I would make her feel good about a simple fact. That's a change. But I did it. And it's those kinds of insights that I want us to acknowledge. Here's another one. A woman is doing my program. For her 50-pound anniversary, and she had about 80 pounds to lose. For her 50-pound anniversary, her husband bought her a Carvel cake. She came in to have her beads changed and said to me, Dr. Schwartz, my husband bought me a Carvel cake. And I said, yes. He knows I'm on the program. I said, yes. What do you think it's all about? She said, I guess he doesn't want me to be successful. I said, okay. And what do you think it's all about? She said, I don't know. But we were getting along fine until I went on the program. And now that I'm going on the program and I'm being successful, I see a change. She came back the following week and said to me her husband had given her an ultimatum. Quit the program or we're getting a divorce. I said, oh, I guess it really bothers him that you're in the process of losing weight. She said, yes, and I'm going to quit the program. She called me back about 3 months later and said, Dr. Schwartz, I have to tell you, my husband finally admitted to me that he was, and I can't remember what she said, I'm going to use the word paranoid. And he felt that in the process of my losing weight, I was becoming more attractive and feminine, and other men were becoming aware of me and that I would leave him. So he wanted me to stay overweight so he would be safe. And so I'm quitting the program. She called me back, I guess 2.5 years later. Dr. Schwartz, I'd like to go back on the program. I said, what's changed? She said, I've developed diabetes and my husband and I have talked about it. We're open about his fear and his anxiety. And I said, look, I've stayed here with you. And he said, then go back on the program because I would lose either way. If you leave me, you leave me. But if you die from diabetes, I won't have you. And so I'd rather you be happy and healthy. And I'm going to trust you in believing that you want to stay with me. Life is very interesting. People who are saboteurs have thoughts inside their heads, and we don't understand what's going on because their behavior makes no sense to us. But what we are doing, in some way, shape, or form, impacts on them. And so I go back to the 360-pound guy. His life changed dramatically when he made himself important enough to take care of himself without imposing on other people. I want to tell you about another one, very interesting. Back several years ago, when I was working in the public schools in New Jersey, I was invited to go to a meeting and was told we would interact and do things, and they were also going to be serving food. I knew that would be a problem for me. So in my attaché case, I put some Dr. John's lollipops. They're made with erythritol and xylitol, and they're non-nutritive. During the meeting, a break was called. They had some kind of buffet, and I took out a Dr. John's lollipop, and I put it in my mouth, went over to the buffet, was looking at it, was talking to people, and this doctor that I knew came over to me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Excuse me." He said, "Everybody's having food and you're having a lollipop." And I said, "Yeah, everybody's having something. I want something too. And I like these lollipops. They taste good. And they give me something that I want, not what I really want. I'd love to indulge, but the indulgence right now is not good for me, so I'm using a lollipop." He said, "Do you have another one?" And I said, "Sure." And I went to the table, opened my attaché case, and gave him a lollipop. And now the meeting continued. And people started looking at me and the doctor. Here we are, sucking on our lollipops. And someone asked him, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Dr. S gave me this lollipop because neither of us wanted to indulge, but we didn't want to not have anything." Now, here's the interesting thing. There was no downside. Number one, the moment you say lollipop, how can you say lollipop and not smile? And when I gave a rational reason for what it is that I was doing, people recognized that I cared enough about myself and that I was not embarrassed to say, because I wasn't doing anything crazy, that I'm doing this, and I had a rational reason for it. I didn't want to indulge in the buffet, but I didn't want to feel uncomfortable by not having anything. One of the things that we have to recognize very clearly is learning to care about yourself, learning to make yourself important in your own life, making yourself aware of the fact that change is going to be uncomfortable, that people have hidden reasons for doing what it is that they do. And most of the people who are, let's call them saboteurs, most of the people who are saboteurs because they have issues. And I don't want to judge their issues. You're allowed to have issues. I'm allowed to have issues. But if my issues impact on your issues, you have a problem. And if you have a problem, we are, on some level or other, antagonists. And you don't like the fact that doing what I'm doing makes you uncomfortable, because you may think you don't know what I'm doing and something wrong with you, or vice versa, when the answer really is it's irrelevant. You made a commitment to lose weight. That's where we started. And you had a reason to make that commitment. And once you made that commitment, you agreed that the commitment you were making made you important enough in your own life to recognize that you were giving up part of your freedom to follow a course and action that was different from your normal life. And that has nothing to do with what you were doing. It's the commitment and the importance you made to yourself, and you gave yourself reasons. Remember? Why am I making this commitment? What do I really want? What am I going to get out of it? Is it important enough for me to do so? We've asked ourselves questions, and this is part of what the issue is. People don't talk. People don't ask. People don't know what they don't know. And sometimes they don't even know what they don't know they don't know. But as long as I have an opinion, I'm right and you're wrong. Why? Because I like to feel right. I hate to feel wrong. Now, AccuWeight Loss gives us that opportunity. The reason you're tuned in here today is because we're talking about you for you. We're talking about achieving a goal. We're talking about being successful. But except for this Monday night, and by the way, I'm going to become more active in the Facebook groups, etc., because what I found this week in talking to patients, that people had questions. In fact, I'm going to stop for a moment. And questions were submitted this week, and I want to give you an example. Dr. Schwartz, I took a bite of my daughter's chicken and realized I should not have. It was a teeny bite. Is it going to ruin the diet for the week? Now, start by remembering something important. There are no stupid questions, except one. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask. If you do not know, how could you be stupid? But if you don't ask and don't learn, that's foolish. Now, this woman does not fully understand AccuWeight Loss. It's not a diet. That's number one. It's a weight loss program that's chemical in nature, all natural, that uses acupressure. Yes, it says the bead diet, but it's not a diet. So because she doesn't understand that it's not a diet, she misses another point. She was tempted, she gave in, and she indulged. Now, whether what the question was fully truthful or not is irrelevant. She took something that's not on the program and ate it. Now, once it's done, it's done. But now she's worried that it's going to impact. The only time it impacts is if you ignore it and not act proactively. She did what she did. She was tempted. And there's a whole issue we've talked about temptation and how it impacts on our life. So let's not go there now. She was tempted and she gave in to temptation. What she needs to do now is simply say, relax. Start again with dairy days. And the odds are nothing of significance will occur. But it creates a problem. What it creates is the realization that I can cheat and get away with it. Here we go. I did cheat. I got away with it. Maybe that says I can cheat again. Now, I've had many circumstances and situations, like the woman, for example, who was having a terrible time losing weight, said to me, I am perfect. I stick with the program entirely. And we talked a little bit further. And she says to me, oh, Dr. Schwartz, what I'm hearing you say is that when I'm cleaning off and cleaning the dishes and there's some food on one of the plates or two of the plates that I like and that I eat them while, here we go. I don't accept the truth. I don't ask questions. And I don't learn what I need to learn until I actually interact with other people. Human beings were not meant to be alone. That's why there are couples, there are towns, there are groups, there are countries, there are nations. People band together for many reasons. It's one of the biggest problems we have in society today. We don't recognize that people are people. You see, I have habits that come from my culture. You have habits that come from your culture. Your culture is different than my culture. But my culture is not antagonistic to your culture. It's different. Any of us can go any place in the world and be intimate with another person anywhere else in the world, and it's fine. But my culture is different than your culture, and therefore my culture is better than your culture. So now we have to fight over which culture is the better culture and ignore the fact that we've banded together, your culture, my culture, their culture, because that's what makes us comfortable. It's not a matter of better or worse. It's a matter of understanding differences. And if we share information with each other, we're going to be successful. Commitment says there will be challenges. Challenges say that we're going to have circumstances and situations that are going to cause problems. Now, let's see what else I have. Now, the key then is how to stay centered. Don't get caught up with the sabotage. Understand that the saboteur has an ulterior motive. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's what you are doing is impacting on them. And they are sabotaging you. Now, here's one of the things I do, and I'm going to continue with this. Dr. Schwartz, yours is the most stupid, ridiculous program. You're going to make people sick. And I go, you know something? You make me really feel good to know that you care enough about me to share your concerns. I'm not going to interact with that person. They have an opinion, and they know they're right. And because they're right, I'm wrong. Now, they don't care about that. They know I'm wrong, and they have to win because whatever it is that I'm doing is an issue for them. So I'm going to say the truth. Thank you. You cared enough about me to tell me what you've told me. And that's important enough that you didn't stay silent and you told me what you had to tell me. I'm not going to argue with you because my job is not to convince you that I'm right. My job is to say thank you. And now we go on our ways. If they want to learn, maybe they will. But I did not say you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. I said thank you. And because I said thank you, look at all the ping pong, boom, 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 boom. I saved myself. Why should I waste that time and energy to try to convince someone about something that I do not understand? Now, with regard to that question, I'm going to say something else. If you can show me how AccuWeight loss fits the image of that person, I'm willing to listen to you. People have opinions. They don't give you verified facts. They have no idea what they're talking about. How they form their opinion is irrelevant to me. I don't need to convince them. You need to convince yourself that what's doing is good for you, that it feels good. And because it feels good, now, just a minute. Hi, Julie. Oh, and Yvonne, if you're still there, Julie says hi to Yvonne. Now, Let's recognize that change is inevitable. But understand something. Change comes and goes. Change causes you to lose your focus. And change, if we are sensitive to it, is only temporary. You can get used to anything. My partner decides that they want to change the color of the room. And for some reason or other, the paint on the wall is not the right color, and my partner wants that, and I can see it's going to make her feel very, very good. Now, I think the color that she's choosing is ridiculous. Now, let's agree that her opinion is her opinion, and my opinion is my opinion. She thinks she's right. I think she's wrong. And I have my reasons for thinking she's wrong. And she has reasons for thinking she's right. Here's the question. I know that if we go with her color, it's going to make her really feel good. To me, it's just a wall. How long before I get used to the fact that it's the color she's choosing? A week, or two, a month? It's not going to take very long for my brain to simply accept the fact that it is what it is, and it is what it is because it is what it is. It doesn't make her right, it doesn't make her wrong, but it makes her feel good. So I accept the fact that it will make her feel good because of the fact that in the long run, it's not going to make a difference to me. I don't have to be right or wrong. But what's terrific is that there is no fight, there is no argument. There's peace in the land. And this is the kind of thing that what's going on between us, is all about. Asking questions, getting other opinions, getting insight, get understanding. How do you handle it? How do I handle it? How do we both handle it? Do you change a little bit? Do I change a little bit? And that's based upon shared information and situations and circumstances. Now, excuse me a second. Yvonne says, Julie, I'm going to call you. Now, what do? Number one, you must be when you are tempted to lose focus, to lose attention. You must be proactive. To be passive puts you in a position always to be victimized. Play music, go for a walk, take a bath, read a book, dance around the house, take a Dr. John's lollipop, have a Tic Tac, As long as you do something, you're making yourself important in your own life. None of us are perfect. All of us are going to make mistakes. But if we can't acknowledge the fact that a mistake has been made, and it's made already, you have to learn from those mistakes. If you're passive and do nothing, the mistake gets bigger because you're prone to make it again. But if you are proactive, you're accepting the fact that you're not perfect. It's done already. And now you have a methodology for making yourself important enough. I want to interact with you people again. I'm going to answer some questions now. And just informationally, I will not be with you next Monday. Barbara is going to do the presentation, and I should be back with you 2 weeks from tonight. Question. I have an all-day meeting on a milk day, and there is a cafeteria for lunch. It's going to be catered. Can I have one milk day, one veggie day instead of 2 milk days so I can have salad during lunch? The answer to that is always the same. You acknowledge the fact that you're going off the routine. It's a dairy day. Now, since it's a dairy day, you're doing an alternative day. For doing that, there are sheets on the website to tell you exactly what to do. This one sounds like it's an afternoon meeting. So this person is going to have salad. In other words, they're going to make it a vegetable day. And the next 2 days, because we always restart with dairy. The milk days melt fat. The fruit vegetable days, high in enzymes, dissolve the melted fat. It's a chemical program. You violate it, it's done. Let's move on. And that's what the problem is. People get caught up in their mistake, and then they continue to make mistakes. How much milk in a Starbucks large latte? This I looked up. The grand latte, which is 16 ounces, contains 12 ounces of milk. Figure it out from there. Can I do a few weeks, take 2 weeks off, and then come back and finish up? The answer is a modified yes. You can do it for X number of weeks. But what does going off mean? If you're going to go back to your old habits, then what are you doing? You gain, you lose, you gain, you lose, you gain, you lose. You never get any place and you never learn anything. You can do the program for X number of weeks. And when you go off, you speak with your consultant about how to live during the period of time that you're not on the program, which helps you maintain the gains of being on the program. And then you go back on the program after having maintained those weight loss gains for when you've been on the program and move ahead. Remember, this is not a diet, it's a chemical weight loss program. So, how you deal with the chemistry is what makes it effective. And all you're doing is extending the amount of time that you'll be on the program. Is there anything I can have on my dairy days to chew? I am feeling the urge to chew something. The crunchy yogurt recipe is a good one. And you can also use sugarless gum and the magic protocol. Those are the three things that I would recommend. They'll get you through. And recognize we all have these thoughts and temptations. One of the reasons I personally don't like shakes, even on vegetable days, is there's a psychological component attached to chewing, and many people miss it. Can I have sugar-free Jell-O anytime? You may have one box of homemade sugar-free Jell-O each 24 hours. Homemade. The pre-made in the store seems to affect the weight loss. I do not know why. Maybe it's the chemistry. So you have to make your own Jell-O. I would put it in 5-ounce cups and put them in the refrigerator so that when I want one, I take it. I have my sugar-free Jell-O. And if I want another one, remember I can have a whole box, I have to get up, go back to the refrigerator, and therefore I become conscious of what it is that I'm doing. If you have any leftovers, you may not carry them over to the next day. That seems to be it. I want to thank you all for being here. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Enjoy my daughter's presentation next week. Take care.